I still went to university because I was so heavily influenced by my culture that university is very important. And I was dating a partner at the time, and her family viewed the degree was everything. And for me, it was becoming an accountant and becoming a partner at a firm. That was how I was going to be able to earn love and the respect from my culture. But it was never me, Kerwin. And this is a problem for so many Asian families. Every time I go back to South Australia, I try to speak to the schools I went to. I try to speak there because there are so many kids now in my culture that are killing themselves because they're doing something they hate to please mum and dad. I had a friend, she studied medicine. 7 years, Kerwin, finished a degree. This was about 10 years ago. 7 years she finished it. And she goes home to her dad after she got the degree. And she goes, here's your fucking degree, Dad. I'm going to go study music.
Oh.
And it's just so tragic.
Wow.
That so many people in my culture, kids, are trapped by this expectation that stems out of fear. Our parents fear because they went from nothing to having everything taken away from them, to come into a country and then having to start from scratch. So our parents, out of fear, go for security. Out of fear, cling to security. And kind of, Carl Jung, a great philosopher, he's got a great line where he says, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents.
Wow, that's a very profound quote.
And that's so relevant to my culture.
Yeah.
That I was able to break that mold, but so many of the other kids in any ethnic culture are kind of stuck in that mold.
But there seems to be a very strong connection between education and the Asian culture.
There is, because of that fear.
Yeah.
My dad knew I was good at magic. He knew that I was good at magic. Even he would be like, oh, wow. But then he would be okay, very good. Now do the doctor, do the accounting. But it's out of fear that they remain blind to their children's gifts and talents.
So you studied accounting for 6 months before you decided to pull out, is that right?
No, I did it for 4.5 years.
Oh, you actually did 4.5
I had 6 months left before I
before you
quit.
graduate.
And it was one conversation that made me quit.
What was that conversation?
So in university, when you are almost done, you have to go out and do work experience. So obviously I did work experience at one of the big 4 firms. And when I did it there, they liked me, so they kept me on board. So I'd do work experience and then they put me on the payroll. And every day after work, I'd perform magic for every single department in the accounting firm. I loved it. And one day, one of the partners came out. And I remember this, Curtin, because this partner always had a hand in his pocket. And I always thought this was super weird. I'm like, why do you keep your hand in your pocket all the time? And one day he comes out and he pulls his hand out of his pocket and he goes, Vin, before I show you my hand, I have to tell you that in 6 months' time, 2 things will happen. I'm either going to fire you or you can quit. It's up to you. And I'm like, my dad's going to kill me, man. I'm good at this. I'm very good at making tax disappear for people. Why would you why would you get rid of me?
I'm the magician.
Yeah, I'm the magician with tax. And then he goes, well, let me show you my hand. And he pulls out his hand and he had really bad arthritis. And he goes, Vin, I love piano. I gave it up when I was in my late 20s to build this firm. I had the opportunity to play in orchestras all over the world. I gave it up to build this. I'd give this all up. I'd trade you my car or my wealth to have your youth again, to make the right decision. I can never play piano again. You need to do what you love. You're in the wrong career. And I remember, there was this beautifully long pause. And I said to him, can you come home and tell my dad the same thing you just told me? That's bloody brilliant. And bless his heart, he came home, had dinner with my family.
He did?
Yeah, absolutely. And he helped my dad see something in me that my dad was afraid to see. My dad knew that I had magical talents, but he was afraid to see it. My dad has known so much adversity in his life that to him, he clung to security. Whereas doing what you love is something that my dad never had the luxury of being able to do that because of that fear. And so he helped my dad see something. My dad already knew I had this, but that night my dad was able to put fear aside because someone else who was successful in his eyes validated his son.
Wow.
And then from that day on, my dad and my mum became my biggest fans and my biggest supporters. And one line my dad said that I'd never forget, that I share at every keynote I do, is from that day on, my dad said, "Son, look, you owe me one thing. You know this, boy. You actually owe me one thing. You have to jump as high as you can in this life. And as long as I'm alive, I'll forever be your net from this point on." Oh. Yeah. So that made that hit home.
Wow.
Yep. So I tested that theory many times. Yeah, I tested the theory.
Let's see how strong that net is.
Shit you not.
Kevlar.
Mum and dad have been there every time I failed.
There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends. I would love to hear what you guys think. Thanks for joining us.